Miami Heat Nation, what is going on? So, in today's video, we are going to be talking about a blockbuster trade that keeps getting thrown around all over the Twitter world involving the Miami Heat. And yes, it is going to be involving Paul George, but don't worry, guys. I'm going to break it down, kind of give you the pros and give you the cons on this. Mind you, this is going to be hypothetical. Um, you know, During the offseason, a lot of stuff is rumored. But before we do start, if you guys enjoy Miami Heat content, we do upload every single day. Our goal this year is to upload for 365 days. We are super, super close of reaching that goal. So continue to keep liking, sharing, subscribing, and let's get back in today's video. So this trade right here has been brought up. And before we get to this trade, the reason why this trade has been brought up is because of this report that came out not too long ago. As you see right here, the 76ers could target Kevin Durant or Larry Markkinen with a package that includes Paul George and the number 3 pick. So you're probably wondering, well, what does that have to do with the Miami Heat? Well, it tells you that the 76ers are willing to trade Paul George and that number 3 pick to gain some good depth pieces or possibly a star player. And the Miami Heat do have that with a Terry Rozier and Andrew Wiggins type package, of course, right? And we're going to get back to that trade, right? So as you see on the screen earlier, let me get back on the screen for that trade. I know a lot of people are going to be like very questionable about this trade, but don't worry, I'm going to break it down so you guys can, understand a little bit more. So the 76ers desperately need to get off this Paul George contract. Paul George has been a disaster. His first year with the 76ers was pretty bad. 3 years, $51 million left on that deal. So the Miami Heat will receive Paul George, but they also would receive the 3rd overall pick. So the pro of this is landing a top tier player in the NBA draft, which the Miami Heat desperately need because I don't see us landing, those star players unless we land a Kevin Durant. So that's the positive of that, right? We also get rid of the Terry Rozier contract and we move off Andrew Wiggins. Those are the 2 players that we've been wanting off this team. So when you get rid of bad contracts, you have to kind of bring in a bad contract yourself in Paul George, but you're also taking the positive of landing a top tier player like an Ace Bailey, bringing to the Miami Heat, which would be a W, right? So when we look at this Paul George contract, which I'm going to show on the screen right here, because the main thing is about Wiggins and Terry Rozier for Paul George, right? So Paul George's contract, it's a lot of money. Right. So $51.6 million, 54, and then 56. So you're going to have Paul George until he's 37 years old, 2027, 2028. And then he'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2028, 2029. Now, when we do look at Paul George's numbers from the past season, especially with, him dealing with injuries, very, very down year, right? I mean, his points went down, the lowest ever since, 2014, 2015. He only played about 41 games played. 16 points, 43% from the field, 35% from the three-point line, 5 rebounds, 4.3 assists, and 1.8 steals. Now, I will say the year prior to that, or the year before that with the Clippers, he did have a good season. I mean, he played 74 out of 82 games. He averaged close to 23 points a game, 47% from the field, 41% from the three-point line, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 1.5 steal. Now, he did struggle in the postseason during that year with the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. And how do I feel about Paul George? I think he's terrible. But I'm trying to think of the positive, especially if you're going to receive the number 3 pick in this draft. If Paul George can stay healthy and he can just be that number 2, number 3 option with Tyler Herro and Bam, but we also get that young player in Ace Bailey, I feel like we take on this trade. I feel like we have to take on to this trade if this trade was to happen. I really do. I think Tyler could be the number 1 option, even though we know he's not the number 1 option, but make him that number 1 option. Make Paul George kind of be that leader, the guy in the locker room to, kind of help these younger guys and stuff like that. And hopefully that Paul George comes back a little bit healthier, because if he comes back healthier, he can help this team. Like, hate him or not, he can definitely help out this team. Because, I mean, the last 2 years, he played pretty solid, averaging 24 points a game and 23, shooting 41%, 37% from the three-point line. So it's not like he can't help this team. Now, one thing I will have to say is I think the 76ers won't do this trade. We probably will have to add our 20th pick. So it will have to be Wiggins, Rozier in our first round pick, if that's the 20th overall pick, so we can get Paul George in the 3rd overall pick. I don't think this is a bad trade. I really don't, because then you look at your team, right? Say you got Davion Mitchell, you got Tyler Herro, You got Ace Bailey or whoever they want to take there. You got Paul George. You got Bam Adebayo. You got Kel'el Ware. You didn't really give up much pieces, to be honest with you. Yes, you're taking on a bad contract, but you're also getting rid of two bad contracts in Wiggins and Terry Rozier. Then I honestly think we can still be able to afford, adding some role players to this team. You know what I mean? And I think this sets us up for the future, especially with a high pick. And it also kind of keeps us in the picture of competing because we all know the Miami Heat love not choosing a direction. They just never choose a direction at all, which is kind of frustrating, right? So it kind of keeps them in still title contention with Paul George, Tyler Hero, and Bam. But also, if this doesn't work out, you're developing that young guy. So I honestly think there's pros and I think there's cons to this whole situation. But I'm very curious to see what would you guys think about this trade. Would you guys be willing to get this trade to happen to acquire a player like Paul George on a bad contract who had a bad year, which his trade value is going to be the lowest of the lowest, so you don't have to give up too much for it. You're giving up your 20th to get a third overall pick. I think that's completely fine. But once again, let me know in the comments section what you guys think. Continue to keep liking, sharing, subscribing. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. And I'm out.